So we had Paris to ourselves, as it were. It was like maybe a third of the population was here. There were no tourists. The hotel was practically empty. I mean, if you're going to travel during COVID, doing it when nobody is around is a really good time. And in fact, the wave that immediately followed when the Parisians came back in September, because they were all out on the beach cavorting, was horrendous. It was almost more deadly than the first wave was here. But it wasn't at the time we came. So we weren't required to have a test. We weren't required to quarantine. We just basically got on the plane, wore a mask the entire time, flew here. They gave us cold prepackaged meals on the flight. When we first got here, they were only requiring masks outdoors in heavily congested, so-called popular tourist areas. The rest of it, you were just expected to social distance, and that was it. And the bigger hassle was when we came back, because when we came back, we had to quarantine in our apartment for 2 full weeks. That went the opposite direction of me. It's a mirror, so I keep setting it the wrong way. So that was August of 2020. Now flip to December 2021. December 2021. What a difference. So now we've got the vaccines, and you would think with the vaccines it's going to be easier to travel, right? At the time we made the booking, that was true. As far as France was concerned, if you were fully vaccinated, all you had to do was show proof of vaccine. If you were coming from a green country, which Canada was, the United States is not, then you were able to get on the plane, come here. There was going to be no quarantine. There were going to be no tests involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we booked it. We were all good to go. We hit the beginning of December, and then the Omicron variant showed up. And rightly so, and I think this is the way it should have been all along. Every nation started saying, oh, we need immediate, additional things. We need to make sure. We need to protect our populations. We need to protect our health services. We need to protect the money that we are collecting in taxes that we're going to have to spend to treat people. So lock things down a bit. I've never felt that we needed to lock down fully. I felt that there just needed to be more mandates, more restrictions, more we have a lot of rules out there right now, a lot of guidelines. There is no enforcement. And that's where I think we've run afoul. But this is not about that. This is about traveling during the pandemic. So again, in August, all we needed was our passports and to wear masks and social distance. That's all we needed. We came here, we went back, we had to quarantine. This time around, when the Omicron showed up, well, of course, even before the Omicron showed up, we had to have our passports, as you have to have for travel, but we also had to have our vaccine passports, proof of vaccine status. Were we fully vaccinated? And if we were, coming from a green country like Canada, there wasn't going to be any restrictions. We weren't going to have to quarantine. We weren't even going to have to get a test done when we arrived. We were going to have to do all that on return to Canada. Okay, fine, whatever. Home, who cares? Omicron variant shows up, and now we needed a negative test to fly. And depending on where you were coming from and what your status was, whether a quick antigen test was sufficient or the PRC test, that was unclear at the beginning of December. The tests started booking up very rapidly, so we booked the highest grade possible 27 hours before the flight left, hoping that by the time the flight day arrived, that was going to be sufficient both in the amount of time before the flight and in the required element that was necessary to get on the plane to fly over to France. It turned out that criteria did not change, so we could have done the rapid test, but who wants to go to the airport and then do a rapid test, and then if you get a negative, whatever. So we booked a thing 27 hours ahead. Flight was leaving at 7 o'clock. We booked it for 4:30 the day earlier. Full, give us the thing. We want to make sure that there's no dispute here. And tests were guaranteed within 24 hours. They were not ready in 24 hours. They were not ready in 25 hours. They were not ready in 26 hours. So we had to go and get the rapid test done at the airport, same company, put a little pressure on them to say, you know, what's the deal? We paid all this extra money. They ended up giving the one at the airport for free. We got the 24-hour test 5 minutes ahead of the rapid test, both negative. That's an additional complication we experienced. You're probably not going to have that, but it's something you need to consider. For travel from Toronto to here, let's mix this up just a little bit more. Now I'm going to go over here. Oh, look at that. There's the Eiffel Tower. This is not a joystick, by the way. It's just a little toggle on the screen. So traveling from Pearson, that meant we had to take the monorail out to the long-term parking because that's where the rapid testing place is. And so we went out there, and like I said, we put a little pressure on them. We got the rapid test done because I said to them, I said, you know, like in an hour and a bit, my plane is leaving. I have to be on it. I need a negative test to get on it. So, you know, just let's do it. Let's do what we got to do, right? So I was prepared to pay for a second test. They immediately offered me something that I could go and get a refund on the first test for because they failed the 24 hours. But like I said, they ended up comping us on the second test at the airport, and we did get the 24-hour test just in time to go through the gate. So all through this panic, the additional complications are coming. So they had to have a negative test to fly. There was possibility of a random test when we arrived in Charles de Gaulle, and if we were picked for that, then we'd have additional precautions. Maybe we'd have to isolate, and I don't know how fast the rapid tests are, but we would have had to have passed that in order to be able to just go about our business. But that was random, didn't happen. I didn't see them pull aside anybody. There was a lot of emphasis from Air France on us completing an attestation form, a form we had to print out, we had to fill out, we had to sign, we had to be prepared to turn over. And I kept getting texts when we were, you know, trying to get the test problem sorted out, not having any luck with any of that. Oh, that's as far as you're going, so let's manually force you over. There. That I had to do by hand. So we finally get to the gate, and of course the Air France gate we're flying out on is the farthest gate possible that you could imagine from security. Oh, and that was even better. We went to the security, and the guy said, no, this one's full. You have to go around to the other one, which was like halfway down the terminal. So at this point here, it's a panic-induced Keystone Cops moment. The minutes are ticking down. The plane has already started loading at this point, and we're starting to panic. I'm getting texts from Air France, like, you know, come to the counter. You have to come to the counter. And I'm thinking what they want is the negative antigen test so we can get on the plane. So we finally get to the gate after going through security, during which Trudy was flagged because she brought a larger than acceptable toothpaste container. We're still dealing with that BS. Yeah. And so we get there, and it turns out there's this whole other thing that we have to do, which I'm going to go through every single email I got from Air France. I was clicking stuff. I don't recall coming across anything warning us about this. But it's a thing called the EU-PLF. It's a French version of the ArriveCAN. You have to fill out all this information. It's buggy, it's counterintuitive. We ended up having to do it on our phones right there at the gate. We're not phone people. I'm a keyboard guy. Trudy only got her phone like a year ago. And this is a buggy website to begin with, because If there's anything wrong, you have to go all the way back up to the top of the website to find out what it is. And sometimes what it is they've just sent you an email to your email address where you have to now go and confirm. And it just took forever to do. It was like if we were on The Amazing Race and we got hit with this ridiculous, stupid detour challenge at the last minute. There's the goalpost. We're going to win the prize, and now we're watching everybody going ahead of us. And that was fine because on the flight over, we had booked the premium economy on Air France. So we were going to have the lay-down beds and everything. We knew we had secured seats. We knew there was plenty of storage space above each one of them. That would have been a concern if we were just, in the back in economy class. Wasn't that big of a concern here. But the time is ticking down, and we're trying to get through these ridiculous last-minute challenge on this stupid French site where we're putting in all sorts of information. Now, just to give you an idea, on the Canadian ArriveCan app, you can hold your passport up, you line it up with the lines, it takes a snapshot, it enters in all the information, tickety-boo, you're done, 2.5 seconds, no keying. On the Air France site, you had to fill in every frickin' thing, and it was ridiculous. It was like, what's your address? Well, we started giving the number. No, we just want the street name. Well, you didn't say that, so then you give the street name. Now you go down, and now it wants your number. And then it wants your city, but it doesn't want your province. And then it wants your postal code, but it doesn't need your country. And it's like, this is the dumbest site I've ever been on in my entire life. But that we had to go through. So now, basically, no problems until we go back. We'll need a negative test before we can get to the airport. That's fine. We knew about that before. That had not changed because of Omicron. And hopefully it won't change because of Omicron. And they're all over the place. There are little tents out in front of pharmacies all over town. You can get the test done easy. We're not French, so we're going to have to pay for them, but it's a fraction of the cost that it would cost in Canada. And then we're going to be tested on arrival. I presume that's a free test. And then we're going to have to quarantine until we're cleared. And I'm hoping that by the time we go back, because we're not going back until the second weekend of January, that they'll have the whole system in place. They'll be moving tickety-boom. But in the initial part, it's taken like 3, 4, 5 days. We have a place to isolate, fortunately. We have a friend who's in the building who we can coordinate to get stuff. It shouldn't be a problem. We're home by that point. We can, do Grocery Gateway or one of those ordering things, or one of the things that we did during lockdown or the last time we came back from quarantine. That's not the problem. The really annoying part of this was the EU PLF last minute challenge at the gate. So